Welcome home, everybody. My name is Chad Pennycuff. I am the host tonight of the Community Hall Live, and I've got some great co-hosts that I'll be introducing here in a second. But we are an awesome DBC member community, and almost every Sunday night, we host a live conversation and go over topics in the DBC community, and it's all about members' opinions, thoughts, and perspectives. And we bring a wide variety of people onto our show, as you're going to see tonight. Some are members, some are not members. When it works out for our story. And today's show is all about Disney war stories. You're at the most magical place on earth, but it's not all pixie dust there. Every now and then something goes wrong, and we want to know what went wrong. And then is there a way that the amazing cast members at Walt Disney World work some magic and help turn things around for you? That's our conversation tonight. I really don't know the stories because we didn't pre-select people and say, oh, this is a good story, you can come on. We just threw it out there and said, who wants to join us for this show, and do it kind of a talk radio style show. But before we jump into that, I want to give a huge shout out over to our sponsor for today's episode, which is DVC Resale Market. They are the #1 DVC reseller in the world. Just this last week, I listed 2 Grand Cal contracts with them. Both of them went up for sale and had full price offers in 7 minutes flat. I've been telling everybody for a long time, you need to go get their app if you are looking for a contract, because the instant that instant that contract gets listed and hits the market, you'll get a push notification on your phone. And sure enough, within 7 minutes, both of my contracts were gone at full price. They are the world's leader in DVC resales. I can't speak highly enough of them. I have bought and sold probably half a dozen contracts by the time this is all said and done. Every single one of them has been a phenomenal experience. You hear them on the show all the time. They constantly pop in when it's appropriate to bring in a sponsor and add some content to our conversation. So dvcresalemarket.com, let them know you heard about them here on the My DVC Points podcast. That being said, let's come back in, and I'm going to welcome a new person to the show, and I'm going to welcome in Mr. Jason Dodge. How you doing tonight, Jason?
Good, Chad. How you doing?
Doing great. And tonight's show really got inspired from Jason and Marianne, who I'll bring in next, but they were talking about Disney war stories one day. And I guess it was a couple hours of conversations.
Well, we were doing the pre-show for one of your normal shows or your weekly shows. And
Yep.
Marianne, typically, I would imagine it's about like maybe 30, 40 minutes of conversation, knowing what the story is. But we kind of ended up talking for about 2 hours or so. Maybe Marianne timed it differently, but it was like 2 hours. And we were just sharing war stories, showing where the scars were, so to speak, of a lot of our trips to Disney World.
Yeah, and we just decided, you know what, this sounds like some interesting content to talk about how things went south, and you kind of recovered from it. And we did some poking around, and a lot of people have some war stories to share. So we're going to do that, and we usually end up on a positive note. So we're going to try that tonight, if at all possible, as to how it came around and worked out. But I don't know the story, so we'll just have to see. But tonight, Jason, and let's welcome back to the show, Marianne. And hey, Marianne.
Hey, yeah, Jason is one of the co-hosts for the DBC Pod, which is a different podcast. It's a Disney podcast, and he and I were talking, and we could have probably talked another 2 or 3 hours. We were just chatting away about all the crazy experiences we've had with our families at Disney, and some of the rather horrific horror stories that we've had. So, but. Yeah,
that's the basis of this show, and we thought it was gonna, if it kept you guys entertained for a couple hours, maybe it'll keep our audience entertained, and we'll make a good show out of it as well. So, Jason, why don't you lead us off here with one of your war stories here?
I mean, I've got a few. I mean, I have 3 small kids. They're now aged 8, 6, and 3. So we've been going to Disney as a family for the last 6 years. So there's quite a few racked up. This one is 2019. Summer of 2019, August, and about 2 weeks before our trip, my son and daughter come down with pink eye. Not a huge case of it. They got the antibiotics. It was wrapped up in about 6 days, so we're still a good week away from going down there. Everything was great, all right? And everybody's fine. We go down to the hotel near the airport. We stay. We wake up bright and early the next morning, and we go down. So by the time we get down there and we're eating dinner, I'm not feeling so hot. Nothing in the eyes, but there's a little scratch in the back of the throat, and I'm not feeling so good. And here we are in the happiest place on the earth, and why am I not feeling so good? So wake up the next day. I couldn't eat lunch. It was like my massive sore throat. And I don't know what to do. I tried calling up my doctor. I was like, can you send me a prescription for antibiotics? I think I have a scratchy throat. My kids had pink eye like 2 weeks ago. He's like, no, I can't send you anything without seeing you. And then went to the cast members, went to the front desk and says, hey, somebody help me. I'm not spending all this money to be down here and, ruining my family's time by making sure I'm taken care of. So they said, no problem. There's a local Medi-Merge that we work with. So they got me a taxi, all expenses paid, essentially, sent me over there. I was there for 2 hours. The doc looked down my throat, said, yep, here's some big antibiotic pills. He gave it to me. Cast members made sure I was comfortable and back to my room. They checked up on me the next day, and it was great. And, within 24 hours, everything was fine. And I was, bright and chipper and ready to go. But when you're down there and you're not feeling so good at night and you're like, oh, I have this was like a 10-day trip, right? So we were there for a while. It wasn't like a weekend trip, like I'll just rough it out and I'll get back home on Monday type of thing. So this was at the very beginning. The only thing was my mother was looking forward to hitting up the tequila bar at Epcot, and with antibiotics, that's not happening. So that'll be our next trip in October. That we're looking forward to, but it was the recovery was was by doctors obviously, but the cast members were great. They helped us get in. They made sure we didn't have to worry about all the medical stuff. They got us all the stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like this isn't their first rodeo. Which the one thing that I've learned is these guys are incredibly prepared, and they know our needs, and they can anticipate our needs before we do. Yep. So always ask a cast member, because this is Disney. They're on their A game. Okay. It's good to hear that they had a medical partner who was able to get you in and get everything taken care of as well.
It took about 4 hours, and I was in bed and right as rain the next day. It was excellent.
Awesome. Marianne, you want to lead us off with one of your war stories before we bring in our first guest?
Well, okay, so we all know that I'm a planner, right? Tom says that I plan our Disney trips like a military incursion, right? And that's how I usually roll. This was partially lack of planning on my part, but partially really bad behavior on the part of all of these people.
Okay, now who are these people, right?
Well, they're the strangers on the beach at the Poly. We'll get there. So 2015 New Year's Eve, we are there. We've been there for a few days. We're going to be there for a few more days. We were on the hotel side at the Poly, rack rate, because we booked at the last minute. Not good planning, but I can't control my mother, who keeps changing her mind. So we're fine. This is going to be great. This is the greatest trip of all time, right? So we're there, and it's supposed to be the busiest day, and one of the busiest days at the theme park. So we choose to go across town to Universal that day. Universal, dead that day. Like, we walked onto everything. It was the greatest day. But we've been on a cruise the week before, and we're halfway through a Disney week, and we're all pretty exhausted. Tom and Sarah and Jack and my sister Joyce stay at Universal later, but my mom is doing chemo at the time for her cancer, and she's getting tired, and Katie's younger and she's getting tired. And we had 2 rental cars. I said, fine, we'll just go back to the Poly and hang out by the pool. It'll be great. We drive back. We pull up to the gates there, the Magic Kingdom gates. We wait forever, right? Pull up and wait at the Magic Kingdom gates. And the parking attendant says, I'm sorry, you can't go any further. And I said, we're guests at the Poly. We can't go any further. She goes, there are no parking spots at the Poly. You'll have to go park at the Magic Kingdom and ride transportation back to the Poly. And at this point, I'm a little annoyed. We're paying rack rate for 2 rooms. This trip cost $20,000, people. And they just told me I had to go park at the Magic Kingdom. At the very back of the Magic Kingdom. At the very, very back of the Magic Kingdom parking lot. I was so mad. So it was like I'm not proud of my behavior, but it was a very Karen. It was a very Karen moment.
Well, I don't think it's a Karen moment when you're paying that money and you're entitled to at least a parking spot.
Right. That was my opinion. So anyway, we went and parked because they were not going to let us go any further. So we went and parked, waited 30 minutes for a tram. And at this point, my mom is near tears. Caitlin is way past that. We get onto the tram and we pull up into the front of the Magic Kingdom, of course.
Yeah, they take you to TTC.
Or the TTC. And then I have to get on some other transportation. And Katie's just looking at me going, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to go get on the monorail and we're going to ride on the monorail because nobody can walk any further at this point in my family. Everybody is just done. We get on the monorail. We wait 30 minutes for the monorail. Then we get on the monorail to ride for 10 seconds, right? To get to the Polynesian. We get off at the Grand Ceremonial House. My mom is in tears. Katie is in tears. And we're walking past the valets. And I decide, well, I'm going to go talk to them because I'm concerned about my car being in the Magic Kingdom parking lot and getting towed in the middle of the night because I'm not going to go out at 2 a.m. when the crowds are gone to move my car back. So I'm talking to the valets and they go, oh, I wish they would have let you pull in. We could have valet parked you. So then I kind of take a deep breath and I go, so if we can get my car back when my husband comes, he can go get my car and you guys will valet. We can talk to the people at the Magic Castle gate. He goes, we're going to give you something to get through there. And I said, okay. And so they took care of that. I'm still a little bit high strung because, there are tears and I've been now told that we could have just valet parked. I would have paid for valet parking at that point. And I think the valet manager saw that I was really upset. And he was like, you know what? As soon as we get your car here and your husband's car here, valet for the rest of the week on us. And I was like, that's very kind. Thank you very much. I said, I'm going to go get these people some dinner and get everybody calmed down. An hour, 15-minute wait in line for Captain Cook's. Because everyone on God's green earth is at the Polynesian to watch the fireworks for New Year's Eve at 5:00 in the afternoon.
Those people.
They've taken all the parking spaces and they're in line for my quick service at my hotel that I'm paying $20,000 to stay at. And I just even at that point, I fell apart. And I looked at my mom and I said, go to the room, put Katie in a swimsuit and come back. Didn't know we had to have a special wristband for the pool because it's New Year's Eve. So at this point, I'm to the point of I can't even do this anymore. And the manager, I think the general manager of the Poly had been alerted to my upset at the valet stand. And he saw me telling Mom and Katie to go get swimsuits. And he said, wait, what were you guys trying to do? And I said, we'd really like to eat dinner here at our hotel, but none of us can wait in this line. So I guess we'll go to our room and hit the gift shop for some chips. He goes, oh, no, you're having dinner. You're having dinner on us here. And he took us to a table, sat us down, brought us menus for Captain Cook's, took our orders, went and got our food, brought us back and comped us dinner, which was nice. And went and got Katie's wristbands, Katie and I's wristbands for the pool. But it was the longest evening. And then Tom and Joyce and the kids roll in. They're like, yeah, we just pulled out of the park. And I was like,
no, you didn't.
I was like, oh my freaking God. And then some not appropriate words for the show came out of my mouth. And I just looked at my husband and said, I'm going to go take a shower. You're going to play in the pool with your daughter. Go. And he just looked at me and he was like, what is going on? And Kay goes, it's been a very long day, Dad. So, but in the end, the Poly did all they could. The Poly staff did all they could to make things better for us. Now, the lady at the parking attendant at the castle, where it says Magic Kingdom, she was not. She was on my list. But really the issue is, and this is where I get on my soapbox. I am for all the hacks, people. Trust me, I am the girl that's going to save a penny, and I am for all the hacks. But if you are not staying at that hotel on a day when it is super busy, please don't use a dining reservation as your parking stall to go to the Magic Kingdom. It's just not fair at the Polynesian or the Contemporary or the Grand Flow when there are not as many parking spaces, or at the Epcot resorts where there aren't as many parking spaces. Don't be those people.
Okay.
Don't be those people.
Those people.
Don't be those people.
So I guess that's the moral of our story. But it sounds like the cast members did do everything. The
cast members did
everything they could.
Everything they possibly could.
Okay. Well, that's at least a bright turnaround moment. And a note to self: don't use the parking hacks. And
because
I think they're starting to crack down on them, from what I've been reading as well.
I think probably because of my fall apart freak out that New Year's Eve in 2015, probably was it. But let me tell you, sitting on our beds at midnight watching the fireworks, it was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome.
And Gina here saying, I completely agree. And then on our last war story, we had a comment from Patricia saying, every one of us had a stomach bug one year. Each a different day. CMs were wonderful, coming in to clean the beddings and the bathrooms every day. My grandson's Yeti, we think, got folded up in the dirty sheets. The front desk people had someone go to Animal Kingdom and get a new one and left it from Tinkerbell.
That's wonderful.
So that is awesome, Patricia. That is the really cool stuff that we love to hear, and we love seeing about Disney as well. And so that is pretty awesome as well. So
Marianne,
okay then.
I have to ask though, did you use the valet for the rest of the week on that trip?
Oh, heck yeah.
Excellent.
But because see, the big kids and Tom and Joyce spent most of their week at Universal that week. And so, yes, I never actually left on anything but regular Disney transportation the rest of the week. But my sister and Tom used the valets a ton. So,
yeah, well, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Okay, then. Well, let's welcome Vicki back to the show. Vicki is a co-host over at the DBC Newscast. And well, let's welcome her and to share her war story this week. So Vicki, what do you got going on?
Hey guys. So it was my first day at a Disney World resort. I was at All-Star Sports. So I stayed at the first building, which is Surf's Up. And then, so it's right next to Stadium Hall. So I was walking from the first building to Stadium Hall to get a drink at the cafeteria type of location. So when you're walking along the wall with the pool on your right, there's the decoration on the wall is like panels with stars. You know how All Stars is blue with stars. So I walk and I hear something behind me. I turn around, and between me and another guest, a panel had fallen from the wall. It didn't hit either of us, but it was like exactly between us. So we looked at each other. We're like, are you okay? Oh my gosh. Right. So then I just kept walking. And then I told people I passed by, I'm like, be careful. And then by then I had seen cast members come by, and I was like, okay, they got it. So I got my drink. I came back, and there was a manager and two other cast members standing around it, being like, go around it. And for the rest of my trip, they didn't take down the rest of the paneling. It was just there. But I mean, they handled it very well, in that they addressed it immediately. No one, thank goodness, got hurt. And then I have another one, which is exciting.
Well, I need to ask, how close was the panel when it dropped?
Yeah. It was right between us, like
inches.
Are we talking 2 feet?
Yeah, inches. Like me and her were maybe 10 feet apart, and it was like exactly between us. And I was like, and we both were like, we looked like this way and that way. We're like, I don't even know where this came from. And then we looked up and we're like, oh my gosh, it was like from above.
Now, did you spend the rest of the vacation just staring up, like wondering when the next one was going to drop?
So I walked closer to the pool because I didn't want to walk from the closer part. But I mean, it's an older building, right? It's from like the 90s or something like that. So I mean, it's not like it's like tip top.
Vicky, you're very gracious. I think the attorney husband in my house might have had enough of a hissy fit to have done something about that.
But part of negligence is damages, and nothing happened. So
Yes.
Yeah,
but we would have gotten a night free.
Just for maybe the girl behind me did, because at least she saw it too. I heard it. She saw it like in front of her face, which is like she was just like she couldn't believe it. But we got very lucky.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
No kidding. No kidding. So I just saw a note from Gina asking us to bring Shannon on and keep you here. So it sounds like this is an interconnected story. So
part of the same trip. Shannon will take the next part.
All right. So basically, this was the first night. We landed really late that night. We had checked into our hotel, and I am one to take off my shoes whenever I go into a room. So I'd taken off my shoes. We had all gotten in. We wanted to, kind of settle down and then go grab some dinner. And I'm walking over to the bathroom, and I'm like, why are my feet wet? I'm like, what is going on? And the carpet is completely drenched, like
squash,
soaking
squash,
wet, like
squash.
squish, squish, squish. My socks are now soaking wet. I'm like, I don't understand. So I'm like, we need to call the front desk. So we call them. They send an engineer over. He's looking around. He decides it's coming from upstairs, but this has got to be like 11 o'clock at night. It's late.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't go knocking on these people's doors, waking them up. They're like, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow. And I'm like, we're just supposed to have a wet floor now? I don't understand. We didn't get dinner. Fast forward to 1 a.m. They gave us a new room. So we're gathering all our stuff now, traipsing through the hotel. And they did comp us that first night because we really didn't sleep there at all. And then Vicky had the pleasure of waking up the next morning to a panel falling off in front of her. So that kind of was the same disastrous trip there.
Gina missed all of it.
I'm just reading Marianne going, Tom would have had the next trip free. Okay.
Shannon, were there any odors coming from the carpet when you walked in?
I wasn't trying to smell it. No, it was just, it was soaking wet.
It's fresh water then, right?
So,
okay, that's good though. There's silver lining here. It was
it wasn't poop water. Is that what you're saying, Jason?
The toilet didn't overflow or something.
I hope not.
Oh man, that would be bad. But
thank goodness you don't have little kids. Can you imagine being a family with little kids?
Oh, if they would
late landing and walking in, and your foot, like Jason's family walking into an all-star like that. Oh,
that's showers for everybody. Let's go. Jumping in the pool, get that chlorine going.
Yeah.
So,
Gina was commenting here as well that she was on the trip as well, and she missed all the chaos.
All of it.
She missed it completely.
She had a great time.
Yeah.
But Amy says that, she had her AC go out at Old Key West, and for some reason they had to get the lock off to fix it. They couldn't wake our neighbors who had partied all night. Maintenance had to use their tool to get in. And
yeah.
I have heard of air conditioners, they have a condenser and that getting backed up. And so the water can't drain out of the air conditioner where it dehumidifies. And I'd heard of that happening before a few times. And these are hotels that's mechanical. It's kind of stuff, but it's great to hear that they did move you, comp a room and took care of it. Is that one as well?
So the other quick story I had was Gina and I's first trip out to Walt Disney World, 2001, May. We stayed at All Star Music. And I'm notorious for liking to sleep in, and Gina wakes up very early. So I was let her go shower first. I'm like, you go shower. I want the extra sleep. So I lay in bed. So she showers. It's my turn to get up and go shower. I get in. A minute into my shower, completely dark. Lights go out. And there's no windows or anything in here for any light. So I'm now pitch black in the shower, and I'm like, can't see anything. I cracked the door open. I'm like, Gina, did you shut the lights? What's going on? She's like, no. I'm like, let me leave the door open, finish my shower. We call the staff again. We're like, something's wrong with the light bulb. So they come to, we go to the parks. They supposedly change the light bulb. We get back. I check. They had those little timers, you can set the timers to have it shut off. Check the timer. The timer's working fine. Light's fine. We're like, great. It's fixed. We go to bed. Gina gets up the next morning. I said, go shower. So she showers. I get in the shower. A minute into my shower, lights go out. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What is happening? I don't understand. I'm like, oh. find my way to the door. Like, it's not close. There's no like light switch right there. You have to like get out dripping wet, open the door. I'm like, it did it again. I'm yelling at her, all right. So we call them again. I don't know what happened. We got back. Third morning in a row, I'm like, I'm sick of this. It happened the third time. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, why do I keep having to shower in the dark? Like, this is ridiculous. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. Miraculously, I don't know if they fixed a light or whatever, but it did not happen after that day. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't comp us anything. We didn't know about like asking for things either at this point. This was our first trip there.
Yeah, I mean,
3 days in a row, I was in the dark showering, and we don't know what caused it.
I'm
So
not
do you
a
have
huge
any
fan of
ideas?
demanding something every time something
Yeah.
little goes wrong, right?
No, yeah, no.
No, but
But they did change the light bulb, and it did absolutely nothing for us. So,
Oh, but at least they tried, and they tried to take care of it as well.
they did.
So, okay, then. Well, today's episode is all about Disney war stories. So I thank the two of you ladies for sharing your stories with us. It's always a great adventure. And I feel like I'm part of the team here because we always end up meeting up at Walt Disney World together. So maybe we'll get some more war stories together and do all of that. So thanks so much for joining us today, ladies. And then, okay. So Gina, if you could drop them down, and next up that we have is Mr. Andrew Darden. And nope, wrong drop. So let's welcome Andrew back to the stream as well. So Andrew, welcome back to the show. It's been a long time, my friend.
Yes, it has. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you bringing me back in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, for those of you who don't know, this is the legendary Andrew Darden who coined the term DVC Deluxe Studios are a flop house. Okay.
Yes.
This is that Andrew. So
why would you buy DVC and still stay in a studio? The whole point of DVC is get out of the studio. But that's just me, the old curmudgeon here,
yeah. So Andrew, so what's some of your war stories that we can add on to the Flophouse legend here, buddy?
Well, like you said at the beginning of the show, this is not scripted. You really don't know what everybody's going to say.
No, I don't.
Actually, I've got one that will play right off of the one Shannon had about the wet floors. In 2008 is when we joined DVC, and we bought Animal Kingdom Lodge, 160 points, and we got the DVD, Disney Vacation Development points for buying in that year before the resort was open. So we had double points one year. So in late 2008, we went to stay at Saratoga Springs because we wanted to bank as many points as we could. Anyway, we were in the room for one night. The next day, one of us gets up and goes to the restroom and presses the button in the middle of the toilet to flush it with that big old high-powered bladder thing they called it. To flush it down. Yeah, power flush. You keep the kids away from it; it'll suck them down with it. But one of us pushed that button, and the bladder exploded. And I mean, that water was going everywhere,
like boom.
Yeah. And I mean, it was everywhere. And I looked down behind the toilet, see if there was a shutoff valve, and there wasn't. It was hard, plumbed in through the wall.
That hit the fan, literally.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I want to know where the porcelain went that exploded.
I don't even remember that part.
Here, right?
Again, this was 2008 in the fall, and so I called the front desk. I said, "We've got a major problem here with water. The toilet literally blew up." And so within about 10, 15 minutes, the maintenance person's knocking on the door, and he comes in and takes a look at it. He goes somewhere into a maintenance room and shuts off the water. He comes back. He says, "I'm sorry, we're going to have somebody come in here and clean this all up. Are you folks going to be here today?" I said, "No, we're on our way out to the Magic Kingdom right now." So we departed, and we were expecting this to be fixed, cleaned up by the time we get back from the Magic Kingdom later that evening. Now, my daughter's 8 years old. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't even care. Just turn on the TV when I get in and watch cartoon. My wife and I walk in the room, and the floor, just like Shannon's was squish, squish, squish. They had done nothing the whole freaking day we were gone.
Like not even cleaned up the mess. Like it's still decorated. Let's just call it. Okay.
No towels on the floor to try to mop it up. No, nothing. They said they had to get a big machine to come in and suck it out, like a big giant shop vac or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I called the front desk again, and the person that answered the phone was less than helpful. I said, "I need to speak with your manager right now." So this person gets on the line. I don't remember male, female, or whatnot. They weren't helpful at all. They said, well, we'll be by to take a look at it tomorrow. I said, no, you're going to do this right now because this room stinks. It's nasty. And we can't walk around on the floor because it's soaking wet. It's at least wasn't a 1/4 inch deep at all. It was a lot less than that, but the carpets were completely wet, soaked. So I got nothing. So I called my DVC guide. I hope to God she's still working for Disney. Her name was Joan Lane. Beautiful, wonderful person. Great guide. Called her direct on her phone number. She's rubbing her eyes, obviously, when she answers the phone at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I explained the situation. No more, no, just a couple of seconds into me explaining what's going on. She said, I know exactly what's going on. We're going to take care of this right now. So she hung up the phone, and within 10 minutes, somebody was at that door ready to grab all of our stuff and move us to another room. They moved us to a 2-bedroom. We were in a 1-bedroom. And the rest of the week was great. And Joan Lane called us every single evening. If we weren't there to answer the phone, she left a message. And we found out that all the points, all of them, plus an extra 160, which was the amount of points we had, were given to us. So we had 3 years worth of points for 1 year.
Wow.
Holy
I'm telling
cow.
you, brother, we used every single one of them, and they were all over the place making sure that we were taken care of.
That's good customer service right there.
That was great customer
From
service. All
your
she
DVC guide, right?
all she had to do was make one single phone call, she said, and she took care of that issue. And I said, well, I wasn't about to find out what she did. I didn't care. I was just glad it was taken care of.
Wow.
I'm amazed that hotel staff, when you have that big of a disaster, I mean, it's not like I spilled a little bit here or my air conditioning broke. It's like the whole room is flooded and you did nothing.
If I made the mistake of pushing the wrong
everyone.
button or something,
And we ain't talking the Winnie variety here.
Yeah.
Okay,
and it's Florida and it's hot and there's moisture in the room. That's usually a bad combination for everything. That's unbelievable.
But it was October, but it was an unseasonably warm October. But
October's always plus 90.
And being a Saratoga owner, that pisses me off because my dues.
That's actually the reason we don't like Saratoga.
Because the dues that we pay, somebody on that maintenance staff let carpet and all of that sit all day.
2 days later, we saw that room completely cleaned out, sitting on the sidewalk out there with maintenance trucks out there working on it.
And gee whiz, couldn't that have, if they would have gotten on it right away, they probably could have avoided some of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I have one other really good story that I want to share, but it's not bad on Disney's part at all. This was back in 2009, and I think I think they had extended the Year of a Million Dreams by 1 full year. Actually, excuse me, it was 2006, the first year we ever took my daughter. She was 4 years old. She had gotten one of those little piglets, the little plush piglet, little one. And she was carrying that thing with her everywhere we went. I mean, everywhere. And somehow, some way, one day we came back to the room after we went somewhere and it was gone.
Oh.
We couldn't find it. I flipped the mattresses upside down because this child was about to start screaming. And she normally didn't do that, but she was really upset that animal was gone. So we figured it had to have been picked up in the laundry because she typically leaves it in the bed and somebody probably just wadded up all the sheets and stuff and like that. So we had driven down there. So we were going to leave the next day. So we went by the World of Disney store over at Disney World at Disney Springs, formerly Downtown Disney at the time. And we went into the World of Disney store and we were looking for some of those piglets. We couldn't find them anywhere. We really weren't looking in the right place that we knew of. But a cast member came up and noticed that she was crying, and my wife was a little upset. But she said, what seems to be the problem? And I told her, I said, well, she had a little piglet that we can't find, and we think it got wadded up in the laundry at the All-Star Movies Resort. Before I could even finish saying the fact that the thing was gone, that little girl said, come with me, come with me, come on. We walked all the way to the other end of that store. She went right to all these piglets. She said, pick out which one you want. Callie reached up and snatched the first one right in front of her and just grabbed it and held it. And that girl said, wait a minute, let me do one little thing. Callie was kind of reluctant to let her have it, but she reached down and she just took out a pair of fingernail clippers and snipped the little tag off. And she said, enjoy your dream.
Nice.
I said, how much do we should? Not one blessed thing. She said, you have just been given one of the dreams of a million dreams. Thank you. She replaced it very quickly, very simply, and no other problems from then on. Now, we are typically very tolerant people. We've had a lot of other issues in parks and at the resorts and stuff over the years, but we just kind of brush it off. Say, nobody's perfect. Disney does a great job.
I'm a huge fan of
the simple little things can make the biggest difference, like using a shop vac to clean up my carpet. Fix my carpet.
Gotta bring it back.
I would have been a happy camper if they'd have done that.
Exactly.
Andrew, you never disappoint, buddy. You never disappoint.
Yeah, Vicky was telling me in the chat before I came on to saying you're famous. I'm like, for what? God, no, please don't put me on that pedestal. There's a lot of Disney cast members that deserve to be on that pedestal, though.
Yeah,
but I love, excuse me, but I love stories like that because, for somebody that doesn't go down, has like the 5 trips that you guys are talking about, weekend here and there, those stories, when you hear them, always bring that magic back into your living room or your office, wherever you're sitting. It reminds you why you always go back home.
Mm-hmm.
How many times, people ask me this quite often, how many times have you seen kids breaking down in the park, screaming and yelling because they're either worn out, tired, or they want to do something other than what the parents want? Most of the time, they're just overstimulated. I remember seeing a cast member about 5 to 10 years ago. I'm going to say 6 years ago, something like that. It was the typical child in the stroller in the middle of the park breaking down, and the parents like, I paid a lot of money for you to be here. But, well, that kid doesn't know that. Doesn't understand that. But I saw this young lady cast member walk over to where this parent was yelling at the child. And another cast member walked up on the other side, and one of the cast members took the mom aside and started helping her, got her a drink and helped her, calm her down because it was hot. And the one little girl bent down and she pulled out this little vial of some kind of green looking stuff. And she started talking about Tinkerbell. Well, the little girl, as it was, stopped screaming, stopped crying, started paying attention to this girl coming over to her. And she said, Tinkerbell wanted me to give you pixie dust. She took out the lid off of that thing and she sprinkled some of it was glitter. It was green glitter. And she took it and sprinkled it all over that child's head. And that kid just started laughing and just loving the whole thing. And the mom immediately went stone faced, like, how did you do that?
That's all it took was a little green glitter.
All it took was a little pixie dust to make that child happy, redirected in the right direction compared to what the parent was doing. But they got the parents some drinks and some popcorn and just made the whole day for that one family. And I thought that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen by any of the cast members.
That mother went to the craft store when she got home and got a 5-gallon bucket of green glitter.
You know it. But you got to know how to use it.
I'm pretty sure she got practice.
And, the thing is that we bought DVC after our experience at the Poly. We weren't DVC membership, but we did go ahead and buy DVC, and partially because of how we had been treated so well by the cast members in that situation.
Yeah,
we went down for the first time with my daughter when she was 4 years old in November of 2006. We went back twice in 2007 for conferences.
Yep.
One off campus and one at the Contemporary my wife went to. And then December, we went for a one-night trip to see the fireworks. And then January of 2008, I bought into DBC right then and there.
Yeah, and Vicky makes the comment that she goes, it should be said, Gina, Shannon, Vicky, all 3 of them eventually bought into DVC despite these fiascos. And Vicky's a former cast member at Disneyland as well. So she knows what the standards are and how awesome Disney is and how they try to do this. And the point of the show isn't to come back in and stir up dirt on Disney, but it's to really come back in and hit the end of these stories, like Lauren said in her comment, she's like, oh, that's a great ending to that story. Is it just highlight how awesome Disney is and why we love them so much and why we keep coming back.
You should read the stories, Chad, about what happens to people who get sick or have a bad accident on board their ships. There's several instances where they have sent an entire ship's entourage with them and meet them at the docks from people from Disney World area to help them get through that situation. It's amazing what they've helped people do.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very awesome. And so let's pick up a couple of our other comments here as well. And then we'll bring in our final war story as well. So Amy says, well, when their AC went out at Old Key West, they gave us back our points and comped us a free night in a 1-bedroom. And we didn't expect any of that. And I think that's key, guys, is to don't expect them to do that and don't come back in and be demanding, but let them come back in and use the resources that they have to kind of make up for things. And they'll generally do that as well. So Mark was saying the first time we did a Mickey Halloween party, we went all in full costume. I walked up to one of the candy cans and said trick or treat and got candy. And I said, isn't this great? Okay. Yeah, I mean, everybody loves those free candy at the Halloween parties. I don't quite get that, but like,
we had that conversation, Chad, on the last show.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, and then Mark continues. The cast member said, "Maybe for you," and then we were walked away by someone that I think was a boss. And I always wondered if they got fired. So, now that's a war story.
It's a tired cast member right there.
Yes, it is.
Well, it just reminds you that they are still people.
Yeah. And that's what we want to stress as well is things happen. And this is a great organization and a great company that's going to do things to turn it around and make things right as well. And Dan Austin was saying we were having dinner at Minnie's Hollywood and Vine, and our daughter, who was a toddler at the time, crawls into Holly's lap and proceeds to get sick all over Holly.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I know what that's like.
If I could only tell you how many times that's happened.
Yeah. And here's the amazing part. The cast members helped get everything cleaned up, got Holly a new shirt, and Abby a Tinkerbell doll.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, kind of come back in and turn that event around. And because that's a memorable thing of that happening. But what you remember more is how Disney was awesome and turned that around as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard more good stories from Hollywood and Vine, from cast and character interactions from almost any other character meal restaurant.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things, and I actually like the food there.
Well, I mean, people go up and down on the food, but the one consistency is the cast members and the characters there are great. So I've heard that all over the place.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for coming back in and joining us again here, Andrew. And
no problem.
Yeah, let's come back in, and then we're going to welcome back in our final guest for tonight, which is Phil, who is your co-host over there at DBC Pod. So, Phil, thanks for hanging out in the green room the whole time, buddy. What do you got going on for us in terms of a Disney war story here?
Sure. So my story took place about a little over 6 years ago. It was our trip down, and we were in the Magic Kingdom, and it was set to be the first time we were going to get to see the Festival of Fantasy parade. So we had watched videos, and we were all very excited to see it. We camped out for our spot, which we like is in Frontierland near Hall of Presidents, because there's a shady spot, and we were all kind of set up, had our food, that sort of thing. About 20 minutes or so, maybe a half hour before it was supposed to start, my infant daughter, we had 3 kids. They were about 6, 3, and an infant at the time, needed to have her diaper changed. So my wife took her to get changed, and the bathrooms were on the other side of the pathway. So she went over to do that. While she was gone, at about maybe 15 minutes they announced that due to inclement weather, the Festival of Fantasy parade will not be on today. Instead, we were presenting the Rainy Day Cavalcade, which it wasn't raining at the moment, but that's what they decided to do. And apparently when they announced that, they just start it right away. They don't wait until like 3:00. It just, at least that day, it started right away. So my wife didn't have time to get back. She was stuck on the other side with my infant daughter. Parade goes by, and I didn't even know exactly where she was at this time and that sort of thing. After the cavalcade goes by, which thankfully the cavalcade is pretty short, she comes over and she has a cast member with her. And she says, I want I wanted to bring her over to you because what we usually try to do is we have cards that we hand out to cast members saying thank you if they do like kind of go above and beyond, just say we appreciate them. And she's like, I want to make sure we get her one of these. Apparently she saw my wife with the infant daughter kind of out in the sun. She went over to her and wound up holding up like the changing pad my wife had the whole time during the cavalcade to keep the sun off my infant daughter. So obviously that was greatly appreciated, and we wanted to thank her for that. While she was there, my older daughter, who was like 6, started crying, and she bent down and said, well, why are you so upset? And it was because they had canceled the Festival of Fantasy parade, and she wanted to see that. I mean, it was probably only a minute conversation. It felt like 20 minutes at the moment, but this cast member was talking to her and saying, well, just, it's very upsetting about that, but, just remember you're here at Disney World with her family, and I'm sure you've had so many, and basically just talking her through it and getting her to smile and all that sort of stuff. So it probably was altogether, she took 20 minutes, 30 minutes of her time. And she was a photopass photographer. We never got a photo or anything and to this day, though, I remember her name was Kimberly, and we, sent notes of thank yous and stuff like that. But that was one where, kind of was a negative situation, but she turned it around for us, and it wasn't her job, obviously she's supposed to be taking photos. She didn't do any of that. But she definitely made it up for us that it turned a negative into a really positive story that we have to relay.
Yeah, those Disney cast members, man, they just like shock you every now and then with the most amazing things. And I think that's one of my favorite things, and why I'm such a super fan of Disney, is when those guys, do the little things. And from what I understand, the culture is Disney empowers them to go do things like that and says, hey, look, you guys have the freedom to go do this, this, and this, and kind of go back in and take care of our guest and make it an awesome experience.
Yeah. Like in this case, they didn't say like, oh no, you have to be taking photos. You can't be spending this time. It's like, no, you're improving a guest experience. So take that time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me come back in with a couple of comments here, and then we'll wrap the show up as well. So Jennifer Ferguson was saying our son split his forehead open at Boardwalk and had to go to the ER. Disney was great and moved our morning character dining reservation and treated him like a king the next morning, and they were great.
That's fantastic.
And that is, I mean, that is just like going above and beyond to make a bad thing a really good story as well. So Steve was sharing that he was horribly sick at California Adventure and begged my wife to go back to the room. I asked her to guest services to see what it would cost for us to add an extra day to our ticket. The CM ended up giving us 4 comp tickets and said that no one should be in the parks while they're sick. We went back to the hotel. The kids went swimming, and I was able to rest and sleep it all off. Steve, that is awesome that the cast members come back in and extended out your stuff a day, or gave you the tickets to make sure you didn't have to do that as well. So, okay. Well, I want to thank everybody that came back in and shared their Disney war stories with us, and how the amazing cast members flip things around. Before we wrap up this show, I do want to do a final shout out and thank you to our sponsors over at World of Disney or World of DBC. They just mess with me on the branding on that all the time, right? And so it's DVC Rental Store, DVC Resale Market, and Monera Financial. They've been with me since like day one. And even when I started, they were like, well, okay, it's about time you asked us to sponsor the show, because it was like season 3 before we actually brought them in. But Nick was my guide when I first brought in, and I think Marissa trained on my contracts as to how deep we go back. And so coming up on the Father's Day show, I'll share you guys another great story about the history with Derek, Marissa, and our kids one day at Bay Lake Tower. So that's what's coming up in some of the podcast episodes. Thank you guys for joining us. Before we head out for the night, Phil, Jason, give us a brief recap of your show and why we should all tune into it. Because I know Marianne's a big fan. I just started listening to it the last week or so. So
this will be a good time to do it, because we're just changing the format of the show. So our show's coming out, Phil does the posting tomorrow, correct, Phil? Probably.
That is correct, yes.
All right. So we are tomorrow's show, we're announcing a new segment of the show. So typically what we do is we run down the news. We're very brief, so we're not one of these podcasts that spend an hour talking about the news, unless it's the mask mandate kind of drops, that type of thing. And then we pick several topics. Usually they're from our Discord channel where people are talking about. So we take what are you guys talking about out there? We find what's going on Twitter, different places on social media, and that's what we chat about. So if you can imagine 2 guys sitting down for a cup of coffee or a couple beers and talking Disney for an hour, that's basically the show. But this coming, I guess, a week from tomorrow, we are doing a new segment where we kind of do like a little educational segment, a history segment, maybe a story. So
special project, yeah.
Special project. That's a good. We haven't titled it yet, so we're very prepared right now. But essentially, we're doing the history of Walt Disney and how he kind of embodies the American spirit, and how his culture kind of influenced the studios and movies and the parks for decades to come after his passing, and how Disney basically kind of emphasized Americana and how they kind of influenced each other. So it's about a 4-part series for the first part, and then we'll kind of go from there. Oh, and I guess it wouldn't be the DBC pod if Phil didn't share, if you don't mind, where you can find us on social media.
Yeah, please follow us at Twitter at PodDBC, Instagram, the DBC Podcast, Facebook, DBC Pod, and we also have a Discord server for lots of chatting.
Okay, and can I just ask while I have you live and on the spot, DBC, sure. What does DBC stand for?
That was going to mess with me, right? That was just going to mess with me all day long. I didn't even try, Marianne.
So there's a common message board that Phil and I kind of met, and that was kind of the origins of it. So I won't go into that. But essentially what it stands for is the Disney Boards community. So, different message boards, that type of thing. So Disney Boards community is kind of,
yeah.
Yeah.
That
and
helps me.
I guess you guys are a podcast to talk about what we're all talking about in all of our other social media channels, right?
Basically, yeah.
It's kind of like a meta review of what's been going on in the podcast, in the chat forums and the boards and the posting and all that kind of a deal.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I know you guys brought Pete onto your show, and just to be thankful for that, I was like, well, hey, we'll bring them back onto our platform and help promote their show and all of that as well. So we do have an interview coming up with Jason to learn a little bit more about his Disney story and a little bit to go deeper into DBC. That'll be coming out on the My DBC Points podcast, and you guys got a great chance to meet Phil. So thank you guys so much for coming back in and joining us today, and I look forward to collaborating with you guys on some more projects as time goes by.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Yeah. And that pretty much wraps up our show today, everybody. So thank you for tuning in. We will be back next Sunday with another live show, and dropping this week, finally, after like months of waiting, the What is a Use Year and all of that great DVC member education show is coming out. It's just been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back so long. It's finally going to drop this week. So stay tuned for that, guys. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a good one. We'll be back soon. And Gina, go ahead and roll the Patreon clip. So
thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.